In the recently tabled 2025 national budget, National Treasury adjusted the transfer duty tables to take into account property price inflation. This is said to be good news, particularly for first-time buyers, especially as there is not transfer duty obligation for the purchase of property below 1.21 million rand. Well, to unpack the latest development for us and to share his view on the latest goings-on in the property sector, I'm joined by Herschel Jawitz. He's the CEO at Jawitz Properties. Thank you very much, Herschel, for joining us. So you described National Treasury's decision to adjust the transfer duty tables for inflation as surprising. Why surprising? And most importantly, how significant will the savings be for those transacting in the property market?
Thanks for having me on the show. So I think it was quite surprising for two reasons. Number one, just given the government's general state of finances and their need to raise money, and hence we're getting the VAT increase. So we certainly weren't expecting any relief on the residential property side, number one. And number two, even though we haven't really had any adjustments to the property transfer tables for some time now, the 10% adjustment that we got this year was probably a lot more than property prices have grown over the last couple of years in almost all parts of the country other than the Western Cape. So it was a welcome move, number one. And then just if you look at the financial impact of it, so they may seem like small amounts. So for example, as you mentioned, the threshold at which transfer duty is not payable went up from 1.1 million to 1.21 million. And that's a saving of about 3,000 Rand. So if you think of someone buying their first home, does 3,000 Rand sound like a lot of money? Probably not, but it does contribute towards paying some of the other legal fees, bond registration costs. If you look at a home of 2 million Rand, the savings are close to 8,000. So I think added up to the savings we're getting here, the savings that potential buyers and current homeowners are getting with regard to the drop in interest rates by 0.75% cumulatively, it all starts to add up and it all starts to improve affordability, if only marginally. And I think it all starts to weigh positively on consumer confidence and sentiment. And the residential property market is driven by two factors: affordability and consumer confidence.
Yeah, you've sort of gone ahead of me, but the next question that I was going to ask you was, do you expect this development alongside the slightly lower interest rate environment to help spur first-time buyer activity and broader activity in the property sector?
Absolutely. So what we've certainly seen over the last 6 months, when the interest rate cutting cycle began sort of at some point last year, that we've certainly seen an uptick in demand across all sectors of the residential market, from first-time buyers right through to the upper and even into the luxury end of the market. And once again, so a 0.75% drop in interest rates on a, let's call it, $1 million Rand bond is a reduction in repayments of nearly 1,000 Rand. You add to that lower inflation, if you can believe those numbers, the drop in fuel prices we got cumulatively over the last year. We've had 1 or 2 increases. And so firstly, I think there is a little more money in consumers' pockets. And equally so, I think consumers just feeling better about where we're going. And those two factors have contributed to an uptick in demand across the residential property sector. And especially we're seeing more first-time buyers coming into the market.
Yeah. So on the one hand, we're talking about the consumer, how they feel, whether they're likely to be incentivized to go out and spend on property, given the macroeconomic factors that we've just discussed. But what about the actual property sector itself? How are you seeing supply, of property? And I know it does depend on the kind of property areas that you're looking at, because, you've got your sort of your high-end kind of market and your lower end market. But how are you seeing the general property landscape?
So as you mentioned, price growth is based on supply and demand, and what we've seen in almost all parts of the country, other than once again the Western Cape, which is kind of an anomaly across the residential market, but we've seen an oversupply relative to demand for all of the factors that you've spoken about: high interest rates, low consumer confidence. All of that is starting to change, and we're slowly starting to see that imbalance or that oversupply in the market being reduced. More demand, more buyers, more activity coming into the market. It's not yet translating into price growth, but it certainly has led to what I would say is getting to the bottom of the market, and especially in provinces like the Gauteng, where we've seen steady decline in property prices. I think we've bottomed out, and very slowly and gradually, I think we're going to start to see property prices increasing as that imbalance between demand and supply continues to shift.
All right, Herschel, thank you very much for your time and your insights there. That was Herschel Jawitz. He's the CEO at Jawitz Properties.